Hello, I'm Kaiser and welcome to Moose Reads. Before I get started, I want to say that the opinions that I give here are my own opinions. They are extremely subjective. If I dislike a book, it is not a reflection on the author, and it is not a reflection on people who do like it. Different people have different tastes, and that's okay. Today, I will be doing my March wrap-up. In March, I read 7 books. These books totaled 2,615 pages, with an average of 374 pages per book and 84 pages per day. There should be chapters marked so you can easily skip around. The first book I read in March was Black Powder War by Naomi Novik. This is the 3rd book in the Temeraire series. It is a historical fantasy. The description says, after their fateful adventure in China, Captain Will Lawrence of His Majesty's Aerial Corps and his extraordinary dragon, Temeraire, are waylaid by a mysterious envoy bearing urgent new orders from Britain. 3 valuable dragon eggs have been purchased from the Ottoman Empire, and Lawrence and Temeraire must detour to Istanbul to escort the precious cargo back to England. Time is of the essence if the eggs are to be borne home before hatching. Yet disaster threatens the mission at every turn, thanks to the diabolical machinations of the Chinese dragon Lien, who blames Temeraire for her master's death and vows to ally herself with Napoleon and take vengeance. Then, faced with shattering betrayal in an unexpected place, Lawrence, Temeraire, and their squad must launch a daring offensive. But what chance do they have against the massed forces of Bonaparte's implacable army? 4 stars. I didn't love this one quite as much as the first 2 in the series, but it was still a good time. I think the pacing for this one maybe wasn't as good. We spend a lot of time in Istanbul not doing much, and then move into Prussia, which is largely miserable. This book also introduces a new dragon character that I don't like, but will, unfortunately, have a presence for the remainder of the series, which may have contributed to my less positive feelings about it. After that, I read Conspiracy Theory by L. Keaton. This is the first book in the Veiled Intentions series. It is a mystery romance. The description says, bitter and weary homicide detective Niall Hammerson burns his last bridge, retreating to the only place he's ever called home. But murder beats him there. Sheriff Matt Dempsey is a glass-half-full kind of guy. He returned to the island after his father drowned to take care of his mom. Life is quiet and simple, until Niall Hammerson's return. Nothing about Niall Hammerson is simple. Maybe Niall's childhood refuge will allow him the space to reevaluate his future. Maybe he'll be able to keep the kind, competent sheriff at arm's length. Matt needs Niall to stay away from the investigation. He doesn't want the ex-detective muddying the waters of Hidden Harbor. Niall's not meddling so much as keeping his hand in. The case is a distraction from the unwanted memories that are popping up like weeds after a rainstorm. 3 stars. This book continues the saga of me being less than impressed by mystery novels. I was in it more for the queer romance aspect, which was mostly fine, but not really a big enough part to overcome the rest. I didn't think the mystery was very good. It was most of the book's plot, but somehow still managed not to feel very present. Additionally, the solution to the mystery felt both too out of nowhere and incredibly coincidental to be at all satisfying. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, or even the worst mystery novel I've read, but I didn't love it, and I don't have any plans to read the rest of the series. Third up was The Fake Dating War by Suk Kar. This is a contemporary romance. The description says, Jake Coleman is my worst office enemy. He pretends to be me, stealing my clients. I hack his calendar, deleting his appointments. Our fighting is filthy because there's a giant bonus only one of us can win at stake. I need the money desperately, but Coleman, with his smug smirk and 6'2" fortress of a body, doesn't know that. Keep pretending everything is great, is my life mantra. But maybe I take it too far, pretending to have an amazing boyfriend that my family wants to meet at my sister's wedding. Now what? Out of nowhere, my evil work nemesis offers to help. He's up to something shady, but I've got no other choice. Now he's kissing me dizzy in front of guests, and I'm sitting on his lap on a party bus. There's only one bed, and he's shielding me from all my rude, nosy relatives? I know it's all fake, but this feels way too real. Come Monday, I can't forget we're at war again, no matter how sweet this charade feels. 4 stars. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm a sucker for fake dating. I like the characters in this and the way they made each other better by being together. My only real gripe with this one is the same gripe as usual with these things. The third act breakup. This one felt especially stupid because she knew full well that he had an ulterior motive for agreeing to be her fake date, and still got mad when she found out about it, regardless of the obligatory "that was the plan, but everything changed" confession from Coleman. I also didn't love that they set up stakes for both of the characters where their work competition wasn't something either could afford to lose, but one of them had to. The resolution of this problem was fine, I guess, but not entirely satisfying. Then I read Emberclaw by L.R. Lamb. This is the second book in the Dragon Scales duology. It is a fantasy novel, the description says. Arcady faces their greatest heist yet, posing as a noble student at the arcane university of Vatra. When the university announces the reinstatement of archaic trials of magic, the ever-penniless Arcady seizes the chance. If they win, they not only prove their worth, but the scholarship will give them more time to unlock secrets and reveal once and for all that their grandsire was not the Plaguebringer. Yet grief still leaves Arcady broken, and when they close their eyes, they dream of a certain dragon. Everin, once the hope of dragons, is now hated by his kind. When he is eventually released from his prison, the queen is clear. While he may help protect the island from wraith attacks, he is no longer a prince of the realm. As he struggles to find his place in Versailles, visions of the past, the future, and tantalizing glimpses of Arcady still haunt him. If he steers the wrong path through fate's storm, he may never be able to create a future where both humans and dragons live in harmony. Arcady soon realizes that to survive the rising threats from both their old life and their new one, they must use every trick at their disposal, even magic stolen from a dragon they thought dead. And as time runs out before an ancient danger awakens, Everin must fight his way back to Arcady, earn their forgiveness, and learn what it truly means to be an Emberclaw. 3 stars. I read Dragonfall for my book club, and if you watched the February video, you know I had somewhat uncertain feelings about it. I figured since it was a duology, I would just read this one as well, since at that time it was on the verge of being released, and it's just a duology. Having read it, I'm not overly impressed. The plot pivots pretty hard into this magic school competition, which didn't feel organic to what came before, and while it did create some important set pieces for moving the plot forward, the competition itself didn't really matter. I also felt like the ending was a bit rushed. I remember getting to like the 80% mark and thinking, there's like 5 very big things they still have to resolve, and I just don't see how they're going to do it. Lamb mostly managed, but I can't say it was especially satisfying, and it honestly left me feeling like this duology will either become a series, or, perhaps more likely, a world where multiple series take place, like Realm of the Elderlings, or, I think, Cosmere. It mostly handled things for Arcady and Everin, but not entirely, and it definitely left Soren feeling like there was a lot more to tell. I'm pretty sure the epilogue actually says that's another story for another time. It's not a wholly unreasonable way to handle things, but it did frustrate me to the degree that I actually cared about the characters. Then my library hold came in, so I was able to continue working my way through Temeraire with the 4th book, Empire of Ivory. The description says, "Tragedy has struck His Majesty's aerial corps, whose magnificent fleet of fighting dragons and their human captains valiantly defends England's shores against the encroaching armies of Napoleon Bonaparte. An epidemic of unknown origin and no known cure is decimating the noble dragon's ranks, forcing the hopelessly stricken into quarantine. Now, only Temeraire and a pack of newly recruited dragons remain uninfected, and stand as the only means of an airborne defense against France's ever bolder sorties. Bonaparte's dragons are already harrowing British ships at sea. Only one recourse remains. Temeraire and his captain, Will Lawrence, must take wing to Africa, whose shores may hold the cure for the mysterious and deadly contagion. On this mission, there is no time to waste, and no telling what may go wrong." 5 stars. I said before that I don't know the actual history this series is fictionalizing, so I can't say for sure, but if I had to guess, I'd say this book is where we diverge completely from what really happened. The book starts off, as the description says, sailing to Africa to try to find the cure for the dragon plague. But in the pursuit of that goal, things quickly take a turn, and at least half the book is dealing with examining how dragons might fit into African cultures and how their existence might impact the slave trade. It's a little slow to start, but once it gets going, it keeps a good pace while exploring an interesting premise. Then, of course, came Victory of Eagles. The description says, "For Britain, conditions are grim. Napoleon's resurgent forces have reached the Channel and successfully invaded English soil. Napoleon's prime objective is the occupation of London. Unfortunately, the dragon Temeraire has been removed from military service, and his captain, Will Lawrence, has been condemned to death for treason. Separated by their own government and threatened at every turn by Napoleon's forces, Lawrence and Temeraire must struggle to find each other amid the turmoil of war. If only they can be reunited, Master and Dragon might rally Britain's scattered resistance forces and take the fight to the enemy as never before, for king and country, and for their own liberty." 4 stars. This is another one I didn't love as much. Lawrence and Temeraire spend a significant portion of this book separated, and while what Temeraire is doing is somewhat interesting, I didn't really love the execution of it. That said, once the two were reunited, I mostly felt it returned to form, and had a good enough time that I was still fully on board with the series. And then my final book was Tongues of Serpents. The description says, "Convicted of treason despite their heroic defense against Napoleon's invasion of England, Temeraire and Captain Will Lawrence have been transported to a prison colony in distant Australia, and into a hornet's nest of fresh complications. The colony is in turmoil after the overthrow of military governor William Bligh, aka Captain Bligh, late of the HMS Bounty. And when Bligh tries to enlist them in his bid to regain office, the dragon and his captain are caught in the middle of a political power struggle. Their only chance to escape the fray is accepting a mission to blaze a route through the forbidding Blue Mountains and into the interior of Australia. But the theft of a precious dragon egg turns their expedition into a desperate recovery operation, leading to a shocking discovery and a dangerous new complication in the global war between Britain and Napoleon." Again, 4 stars. This one, I think, had a pacing problem. The bulk of the book is them traversing Australia in search of the egg that was stolen. It's repetitive and not especially interesting. That's not to say there aren't good parts, and I always enjoy the interplay between Lawrence and Temeraire, but I think if I were ranking these books, this one would come in last. That's all the books I read in March. If you like this video, I hope you'll watch more in the future. Thanks for watching this one. Bye!